Hello, this is the Aussie Arrowhand. What you are watching today is part of a research stream series about Buddhism. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the Wikipedia page Glossary of Buddhism. And my challenge here is to read through every concept or word A to Z and just see what I can learn. Today, we're going to be looking at this one. So the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra, the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra, the Sutra on going forth. So we may note this one doesn't have a hyperlink. So that's a good indicator this might be an obscure text. So what we'll do is we'll start by Googling it. The Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sutra. I think that's how it's pronounced. My apologies if it's pronounced a different way. So let's have a look here. We've got a few entries. We've got the Oxford reference website, the Wisdom Library, the Map Academy, Buddhism Forum. Yeah, there's a few resources here. But I want to know if there's a Wikipedia page. So let's have a look. It doesn't appear to have one, which is okay. But I was just wondering if there was something we could link this to here. But apparently not. So we'll go back a page, and I think we might start with this Oxford reference. So let's have a look here, see what this website tells us. So we've got, this might just be a, yeah, this is a database. So, but what can we read from this brief description? In Sanskrit, Sūtra of the Great Renunciation, this scripture relates the story of Prince Siddhartha's going forth. So, yeah, I think this is an entry within this book, the Princeton Dictionary of Buddhism. So, what I'm going to do is I'll just piece together a few things here. I've got a good system of taking notes at the moment, at least for the purposes of this channel. I want to work on improving that, but let's get some translations here, because this is more of a, this looks like a scholarly resource, and it calls it the Sūtra of the Great Renunciation. So I guess we'll put up the top there the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra. That is a bit of a tongue twister for me, but I'm sure I'll get a fair bit of practice reading it in this video. So, the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra, the Sutra of the Great Renunciation. Alright, so if we go back to the glossary page, translates it as the Sutra on going forth. So, Sutra of the Great Renunciation, the Sutra on going forth. Let's see how some of these other websites describe it. Wisdom Library. There's a definition here. So, let's have a read of this one. Alright, so this, so what is Wisdom Library? I just want to see what this website is first. So, alright, so this just seems to be somebody's personal collection of Eastern philosophy texts by the looks of it. So So we got the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra. What does it say? It means something in Hinduism Sanskrit. If you want to know the exact meaning, history, then check out the descriptions on this page. Okay, that's an introduction. So this looks more like a sort of linguistic analysis of the title. So Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra can be associated with the following Chinese terms. And there's a list here. So Benxing Jing. Alternatively, Sutra of the collection and the past activities of the Buddha. Sutra of the collection of the original acts of the Buddha. So these seem to be coming from Chinese translations. And alternative ways of writing it. It's not telling us much about the book itself. Okay, relevant text. Search found 9 books and stories containing... so there's quite a few variations of spelling here. So we're talking about Taisho, the Chinese Buddhist canon. The Fo Shou Hing San King, A Life of Buddha. So there's a few different texts here. So that's an interesting resource. I'll keep that one open. I'll come back to that. I have a feeling this might be relevant later. I've got the Sutra on going forth. And alright. So we got some titles here. So I'm going to search the English version of those titles and see if there's anything that comes up. So the AI, it says, the Sutra of Great Renunciation refers to the Buddhist scriptures detailing Prince Siddhartha Gautama's pivotal decision to leave his opulent palace life to seek enlightenment. Okay, so this seems to be about the story of when he left the palace. And I'm guessing the 4 sites are included. Siddhartha witnesses suffering, old age, sickness, death, and this is his great renunciation. So let's have a look at the sources here. There's a page for the Great Renunciation, Lumbidi Buddhist University on Facebook, The Light of Asia. So that seems to be a book. There's a few there. So, okay, so there's some alright looking references there. I think if we head over to this Great Renunciation page, it might reveal more. And so that's in purple because it came from our Google search. I'll get rid of that. So the Great Renunciation is a traditional term for the departure of Gautama Buddha from his palace at Kapilavastu to live life as an ascetic. It is called the Great Renunciation because it is regarded as a great sacrifice. Most accounts of this event can be found in post-canonical Buddhist texts. Okay, I'm going to open that hyperlink and read it in a bit. I just want to know what this post-canonical means. From several Buddhist traditions, which are the most complete. These are, however, of a more mythological nature than the early texts. Okay, so we can say this. It is about the Great Renunciation. So I'm wondering, and I guess this is a question I have. Is there more than one account of the Great Renunciation? And I'm thinking a little bit of, I guess it's the Sermon of the Mount. that's the Jesus story, right? The one that's retold in the Bible several times through all of the different... No, it's a collection of sayings. Jesus's crucifixion. So we'll look up the story of that. Does it have a name? Crucifixion story. All right, I think, because if I recall correctly, and I haven't read the Bible for a good long while now, but there appear to be several chapters that retell the same story. Well, I don't know if we can call them chapters, maybe books, but I'm wondering if, like Jesus's crucifixion story, is the Great Renunciation told in multiple ways. So, are there multiple accounts of the Great Renunciation? And there almost certainly are. But what I want to know is, when it comes to the major sutras, how is that sort of managed? How is that handled? Are they referring to the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sutra when they talk about the Great Renunciation? I don't know. So that's one of my questions. And I sort of, I really need to brush up on Christianity. But, alright, so where were we? We were, well, back to the Great Renunciation here. With this webpage, I'm going to search, and I'll just put this Abhi, because everything's written in a different way. I think just having this prefix here will help us find information. So let's try. So it redirects here, and it says here, Abhiniṣkramaṇa, Sanskrit. Oh, is that? So this Maha. I'm not sure what Maha is or what that adds to this, but is that the same as that? Let's have a look. Yep. So you can see it's very, very similar. So we got the Mahab. So they call it the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sutra, or the Abhiniṣkramaṇa. So, like I said, this is a bit of a tongue twister for me. But, okay, so perhaps it's just referring to that event when it's got that there. I'd like to know what that is, Maha, or what attaching an M to this, to Abhi. What is it? Abhi, Ma. Ma Abhi. What does Ma and Abhi together mean? I want to know. Prefixes. What does Ma and Abhi together mean? I don't know if I'm going to get an answer to that, but I might be able to find something. So let's close that one. Well, no, I won't close it. I'll leave it open. But, all right. So, Great Renunciation. I'll continue searching, because that was just right at the beginning here. So, translations of the Great Renunciation. Sanskrit. Yep, there we go. The Abhiniṣkramaṇa. And I'm guessing the adding of sutra is to say these are sayings about this. This is a collection of sayings. So, Abhi. Alright. So, what's this here? Sources. This looks like a good place to start. Several early Buddhist texts, such as the Arya Pariyasena, the Arya Pariyasena Sutta and the Mahasakaka Sutta, as well as sections in the texts on monastic discipline, Vinaya contain fragments about the early life of the Buddha, but not a complete and continuous biography. So I think that answers part of my question here. There are multiple accounts of the Great Renunciation. Well, there's multiple accounts of the Buddha's life. So yeah, I'm going to pop that there. Nevertheless, even in these fragments, the Great Departure is often included, especially in Chinese translations of the early texts from the Mahisasaka and Dharmaguptaka schools. Later onward, several Buddhist traditions have produced more complete accounts, but these are more mythological in nature. So, yeah, it's sounding to me like there are scant details and people have done a lot of speculating and storytelling about the Buddha's life. This includes a more complete biography in the Vinaya of the Mula Sarvastivadins from the 4th century BC and several related texts. The Sanskrit texts that deal with the life of the Buddha are the Buddha Karita by Asvaghosa, the Mahavastu from the Lokottaravidins. Yep, so we keep going. There's quite a few texts, Sanskrit or otherwise. There are quite a few texts that deal with the Buddha's life, and the Great Renunciation is recounted in some of them. There are also translated biographies in Chinese about the life of the Buddha, of which the earliest can be dated between the 2nd and 4th century BC. Many of these include the Chinese word for Great Departure as part of the title. One of the most well-known of these is the Foban Jingji Jing. Sanskrit usually translated as the Sūtra of the Departure. Okay, so there's I guess this text here might be one of the most, widely read or at least well known of the sutras about this topic. So I'm going to pop this up here. So the Foban Jingji Jing, usually translated as the Sutra of the Departure. And I'll put that in there as well. So we've got some idea about what this is about now. So, all right, it's about the Great Renunciation. It's about the Buddha's departure. So there's a Chinese version. It's this one here, written in Chinese. So before I get too in the weeds, so let's go back to the glossary page for a moment. So we got the Sutra on going forth. I'm thinking that this page should link to that. At least if there's no page on the text, then at least it's linking to the Great Renunciation. So that's something I might fix up later. They may reverse the edit, I don't know. But I think it might be helpful. Sutra, but alright, so we got these texts here. We got a bunch of sources. And this sutra, is it the Chinese? Well, what I'm wondering is is this a Chinese translation of an older text, or is this a translation from the Chinese text? So that's one of my questions. Okay, so is Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sutra in Chinese, and I might actually put this here, the Foben Jing. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is the Foben Jing a translation of an older text, or is it a? Or hold on. So is it a translation of an older text, or is the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra a translation of it? Well, I'll write the Chinese text just to sort of remove some potential ambiguity. So, okay, so there's a couple of questions. So, well, all right, is there a sutra? Do we call it the Sutra of the Great Renunciation? It looks like it, but there's several sources here. There's lots of different sutras, but here we go. Chinese word for great departure. I'm thinking this is probably Chinese. This is probably a Chinese text. So, and all right, I guess what I want to do is I just want to sort of give a very brief overview of the Great Renunciation or the Great Departure. So let's have a look and see if we can find a simple summary somewhere. That Wikipedia page it's got a little more detail than we might like. So just for this purpose. Alright, so that seems to be... Yep, that seems to be a story. I'll just see... So Bhikkhu Bodhi has written something here. I don't know if I'll read all of this, but we'll have a look through it. Just about all versions of the Buddha's biography tell us that the Bodhisattva, the future Buddha, made his great renunciation of the household life shortly after his wife gave birth to their first and only child, the boy Rahula. So, yeah, if we were to sort of do a very brief timeline, he leaves after he has a child. So according to the classical story, he departed late at night on the very same day that his wife gave birth, slipping out of the palace undetected while everyone else was asleep. So, and here's this, I don't know how people feel about this. It feels a little bit like he was abandoning his wife and child. And yeah, so he and it says here, many Western students of Buddhism find this action hard to empathize with. Some even consider it a breach of duty. So contrary does it run to our own sense that a man is obliged to remain with his family at least until the children reach maturity. And I agree with that. I don't know what was going through the Buddha's mind when he made his decision. I think we have a fair idea that he was in a certain amount of emotional pain. But reading on, yet for traditional Asian Buddhists, part of the appeal of the Buddha's life story rests on the resoluteness with which he heeded the call to his spiritual quest, even when this demanded that he leave behind his wife and newborn son. So I think I'll leave that up to everyone else to decide whether whether that was a moral and good thing. But yeah, so he's decided to leave. He's fled off in the night. So I might even make a very brief timeline here. Timeline. So the Buddha flees in the night after his child Rahula is born. Okay, so that's one thing. And I don't know if I'm going to get a proper chronological narrative here. Yeah, so Bhikkhu Bodhi appears to be, sort of debating whether this was justified or not. So, and that's an interesting article. So, but yeah, so it's going in a historical context. We should also remember that in ancient India, almost all families were extended ones, integral parts of a larger clan, and thus if a man left his wife and children, others in the clan would take over the task of providing for their needs. So yeah, maybe the child was well looked after, and he lives in a palace, so but yeah, so I guess the Buddha's great renunciation, and that is the life he was leaving behind. So he was leaving behind a life where he had it all. Why did he do it? Well, it sounds like he just became aware that there is suffering and hardship in life, and this has a great hold over many, many people. Maybe it had a great hold over him, and he sort of went on to sort of formulate, and I want to know how to pronounce this because I call it dukkha. It might just be dukkha. But yeah, it's this idea that life is
dukkha.
It's got dissatisfaction and pain and suffering in it.
Dukkha.
So, and that's not playing for some reason.
Dukkha.
Okay, so if I do this, I've got to turn the mic off. So
Dukkha.
So it pronounces it like docker. So, or at least this pronunciation guide does. So, dukkha. All right. So how do we describe this? It's just unsatisfactoriness, unease, disharmony. We experience these things in life. So that's a pretty good prompt to use there from the AI, but I'll try another source. So suffering, pain, unease, or unsatisfactoriness. It's an important concept in Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism. So, but it's a powerful thing. And I'm guessing that the Buddha just, he wanted to spend his life finding a way out of it. So the other part of the Great Renunciation. So let's even type in timeline, see if I can find something. Okay, so he abandoned royal life after seeing old age, sickness and death, and I've sometimes heard this story as he encountered it just as he left. He may have been in the palace. He may have been outside of the palace, but he witnessed the four sights, which is what was it? It was an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and an ascetic. And that put him on his path. Key events in the timeline. So, he was born a prince, age 29, sort of taking this with a grain of salt because it's AI. It hallucinates things. Siddhartha ventures outside the palace and witnesses an old person, a sick person, a corpse, and a peaceful ascetic, the four sights. So I will copy that and put that into our notes. So there we go. And actually, yeah, he ventures outside the palace and he flees in the night after his child Rahula is born. Right, in the years following, that's when he wanders the Ganges, wanders up and down the Ganges, practicing life as a Shramana. He finds some teachers and he practices asceticism. He joins what's called the group of 5 ascetics, and yeah, they practice extreme sort of self-deprivation, self-denial. They resolve not to indulge in any worldly pleasures, but no, he goes on to formulate Buddhism from this. The story is that he sits under the Bodhi tree, and then he has his insight. He attains enlightenment, and from that point on, he goes from being Gautama, the prince, Gautama the Shramana, who had renounced his life of being a prince. He goes from that to being the Buddha, which is it means the enlightened one. So, and we can say there. So he attains enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. All right. So this, let's have a look here. The Benxing Jing. Is there an actual? Is it easy to find a text? Let's have a look. So, yeah, it's a comprehensive Chinese Buddhist scripture detailing the life story of Siddhartha Gautama and his journey to enlightenment. So this says it's Chinese. There's a PDF here. Okay, so this may be looking at academic sources when it says this. So, alright, so here's a page. An understudied biography of the Buddha. Okay, that looks like a good article to read. Let's look at the abstract. So, the Benxing Jing, translated by the late 6th century Gandharan monk Shinayashe Dhyasayas. Sorry, I've completely butchered that. As I reconstruct the name, is the first Buddha biography in Chinese which was translated into a Western language, into English, by Samuel Beale, and has no known Indian original or counterpart, like Asvagos's Buddha Karita or the Lali Tavastara. Okay, I've answered one of my questions there. So, is the Benxing Jing a translation of an older text, or is the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra a translation of the Chinese text? No. So that came from here, and I'm not planning on saving this, so I'm not bothering with sort of detailed references or anything. But yeah, so we've got our answer there. No, it's Chinese. It is Chinese. And they haven't found an Indian counterpart text. So I guess this looks like a good paper. Who's it by? Max Deeg at Cardiff University. That's cool. Alright, so I'm wondering, Benxing, let's just try, well, I'm thinking if that's going to be in this list at all, it should probably have its Chinese title. And I'm going to have a look and see if it's in there. So FO. And yeah, that pair of letters is... So we got 4, Fukado. There's only 3 entries in the F section, and that is not one of them. That is not one of them. Okay, so, alright. So, I've answered 2 of my questions. I've given a very brief sort of timeline of the Great Renunciation. But this one here, what does Ma and Abby together mean? I'm going to punch this into Google, see if that answers it for me. And what is the language? Is it Sanskrit? I think it might be Sanskrit. Let's try this. Yeah, fan fiction, informal dialogues. That's not what I'm looking for. Not at all. Alright, where did I find this? It's at the top here. So it says Sanskrit. I don't know if I'm going to get an answer here because this can often be a bit tricky. Okay, so in Sanskrit, the combination of Ma and Abhi, I think Abhi means above, usually appears in compounds as Mahabhi, representing of a union of great and towards or excessive. Alright, so let's have a look. Where's that? The Sanskrit dictionary, that's getting that from. Yeah, so Wisdom Library. There's a few pages there. I don't know how good or reliable most of them are. But, yeah, so Ma and Abhi usually appear in compounds as Mahabhi. Okay, great, towards, excessive. So these are the components. Ma is derived from the root ma, to exalt, honour, or mahat. It means great, large, vast, exalted, grand, or high, and so forth. So meaning together, Mahabhi, Maha, Abhi, when combined they signify greatly towards, excessively, or highly. Common applications and derived terms. So the Mahabhi Saka, a very important or great doctor, physician. Mahabhi Saka sometimes refers to the great setter forth, or in certain contexts, a great conqueror or vanisher. So the Mahabhi Saka, that's interesting. Let's have a look here. No, it's not Saka, it's the Mahabhi. So where we go? Mahabhi Niskramana. So I'm guessing this means renunciation. This is how they get the great renunciation or the great departure. I'm just wondering why that M is dropped sometimes. That I'm not so sure about. So it means great. And yeah, this is a translation. It means great, excessive, highly, what's this? Mahabhi Jana, of noble birth or high descent. Okay. So, where is it? Mahabhi. I'll pop that little hyphen on the end there. So, Mahabhi means great. So, great renunciation. Very good. Alright, so it's an understudied biography of the Buddha. And yeah, alright. So I've learned a few things from that. So what I might do is I'm going to wrap it up there. And I'll just give a brief summary. So we got the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra, which is, it's this text, the Benxing Sutra of the Departure. So really, that's the topic. That's the name of it. And this is the translation. So it's a Chinese text. It is about the great renunciation, but also seems to be a biography of the Buddha. in general. So it's not just the Great Renunciation, I think. If I read through this, I would learn more. But they call it Sutra of the Great Renunciation, the Sutra of the Going Forth, Sutra of the Departure. These are some of the translations people have come up with. So I don't know if this deals specifically with the Great Renunciation or if it's part of... it's just part of a biography of the Buddha's life. So it is about the Great Renunciation, possibly part of a wider biography of the Buddha's life. So, timeline. So, and there might be a different account in here altogether. I don't know. This is the common story. This is the very basic sort of story that people tell. Siddhartha ventures outside the palace and witnesses an old person, a sick person, a corpse, and a peaceful ascetic. And this is called the Four Sights. You know, this fills him with such a sort of great existential sort of fear or longing that he decides to flee in the night from his palace, from his wife and child, after his child Rahula is born. He attains enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in, is this Bodh Gaya? And I know it's by a riverbank. So I don't know if it's in this village. It might be. So that's something, yeah, that's getting sidetracked again. So attains enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. It was on the banks of a river. It starts with an N. I can't remember the name right now. But yeah, so but I've missed a step here. I've missed part of the timeline. That's when he became a Shramana. The Buddha became a wandering ascetic. Then he attains enlightenment after that, and then he becomes the Buddha. So Gautama, I should say. That's more correct. So we'll call him Gautama. Alright. So, yeah, very rough timeline there. We have an understanding of what this text is. Are there multiple accounts of the Great Renunciation? And yes, there's lots of early Buddhist texts which recount the Buddha's life. They got fragments about the early life of the Buddha, but it sounds like there's very few complete or continuous biographies within these canons. Later onwards, several Buddhist traditions produce more complete accounts, but yeah, so because details are scant, there's a lot of speculating. It gets into the sort of myth-making side of Buddhism. So what does Ma and Abi together mean? So Mahabi means great. So that's part of the Great Renunciation. What I'm not sure about is why the M is there and why it's sometimes not there, because it's not there here when we've got it next to the sutra. But there might be some grammatical thing. I don't know. I don't speak Sanskrit. So is the Foben Jing a translation of an older text, or is the Abhiniṣkramaṇa Sūtra a translation of the Chinese text? Well, yeah, we've already answered that. So it's a Chinese text. It doesn't have an Indian counterpart, and yeah,